Welcome to The Change, a podcast about the changes in life that shake, break, and make us. I'm Laura, a 45-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum who has until recently always loved change.
And I'm Cathy, a 53-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum, and change is actually my kryptonite. We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia on which this podcast is recorded and recognise the continuing connections to lands, waters and communities.
We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and elders past and present.
Hey Laura, how are you going?
Cathy, I'm good. I'm actually quite excited. I'm excited because today we've got a pretty special guest. Please tell me.
I will, but you have to make a promise.
Mm-hmm.
Promise you're not going to fangirl too much.
Oh God, I can't promise that, Cathy. I can't.
All right. Well, our fabulous, incredible, look, honestly, there's not enough descriptive words about our guest today. We have Gina Chick. She is a rewilding facilitator, adventurer, writer and speaker. Gina was one of 10 participants on the first series of Alone Australia, made by ITV, screened on SBS in 2023. After 67 days in the wild, Gina was the last person standing and the second woman to win an Alone solo challenge. Her determination, passion and love of the natural world endeared her to more than 5.5 million Australians. Gina's articles have been published in The Guardian, News.com, Mamamia and SBS Online. And her book, We Are the Stars, is out now everywhere. And we hard recommend you go and get a copy.
Gina, thank you so much for joining us on The Change today. It is honestly such an honour. I loved Alone and watched it with my family, and my eldest son, who's now 14, is just a bit starstruck that I'm interviewing you today. So I just wanted to get that off the bat, get the kind of celebrity feeling. I feel a little bit nervous, but thank you. And yes, I just wanted to say how much also I enjoyed your book, We Are the Stars. Cathy and I have been talking about it. My husband's currently reading it. There's so much in it. And actually, my husband said to me this morning, you're just such a unique person. I don't know anyone like you. And I guess reading your story is so inspiring, and I'm gushing and I'm sorry, but it was such a wonderful read. Your writing's beautiful. And as someone who is a writer, I just was a bit astounded by it, actually. It's one of the best books I've read ever.
Just to add to that, before Laura gets into the actual question, I'm going to add to the gushing. Because I hadn't seen Alone, what I knew was what Laura had said. And even before we knew that you were writing a book, you were on our list. Like Laura has 100%. Been saying from the beginning, when we were starting our podcast, we need to talk to Gina Chick. And I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure Gina's kind of relatively local, sounds like a great idea. So I didn't know very much at all about you. When I got your book to read, I could not put it down. I was so immersed. I was annoyingly immersed to my family. I could not stop reading. I don't think I stopped reading. I read it in one complete sitting.
Oh, wow.
In about 6 hours. I just could not stop. I was like, I need to stop. I need to go and do other things. But I'm like, okay, at the end of this chapter, but no, the next. I was like, I need to know what happens next. Not many books do that to me. And, so I'm going to gush too, because your story has really impacted me in a way that I wasn't quite expecting, because I didn't know what to expect, but I wasn't expecting to be impacted the way I was. So thank you for sharing your words and putting them out into the world, because I know that they will make a difference to each and every person that reads your book in a different way.
Wow. Well, thank you both. And I'm really touched. I think the thing for any writer, well, for me anyway, but most of the writers I know, is we want to know that our words touch. That's the purpose of art. There's something about the creative process which is for the artist in whatever way. But then there's the other part for those of us who want our art to be experienced by other people. And that's the dance of where what I've given out lands, and then what happens in that other person, and that becomes a relationship. And I'm all about connection. So I never get sick of hearing about how little bits of my book have touched people, or, you know, the parts that they've resonated with, or what's alive in them. And I love that you didn't know, Cathy, anything. And so you came to the book, you know, completely fresh. But I think for people who have seen me alone, or, you know, have seen interviews, everyone I know has been surprised because, A, it's not a celebrity memoir. It's nothing like a celebrity memoir. It's written as a novel. It's written with a narrative structure with different voices. The voice changes through the book. And also, people who've known me from Alone think that that's going to be about Alone, and it's nothing to, you know, it's not, Alone doesn't even get mentioned. But what I always say to people is, this is all the stuff that happened to me in my life so that I could go out on Alone. And some of it is kind of surprising, I think. I didn't
very
know,
much so.
Surprised.
Yeah, it explains why we as a family loved you on Alone, I think. I read that and I was like, oh, okay. You know, we connected with you, you know, as a sort of TV character personality, and your amazing, you know, the parts of your story that you shared on Alone, but the book kind of just backed it all up and explained why you are who you are. It was an incredible story. And I guess that brings me to my first question about your childhood and how much of it was so enmeshed with nature and animals, and some of those stories in the book are kind of visceral, and the way that you are, you know, as a child, and your relationship to creatures and looking after them, but also being fascinated by them, really entranced me, I guess, as a reader. But then later in the book, you go into your 20s and you're living the kind of life in Bondi and partying. And I just wonder, there's two such different Ginas, and how you kind of have reconciled them to the Gina that you are today.
Well, I think you'll find, again, you know, if you do read the book, the voice of each section really changes as my consciousness changed, as we do, you know, as we do in our lives. Like, and if you look at kids, the wonder of a child's gaze when they don't know anything yet, when there is still mystery, where there is still wonder, where there is, you know, there's infinite possibility. A stick isn't a stick. It's something that you throw. It's something that you catch. It's something that you build things from. It's something you throw in the river and play games where, you know, another kid jumps in and puts it in their mouth and paddles like a dog. Whereas when we're adults, it's just like, oh, it's just a stick. It's kind of boring. It's lost its life force in a way. And when I've written this book, I've gone from the wonder of a child, which is what you see, and the child that I was incredibly, unutterably in wonder and in awe and in love. And then, of course, teenage life happens, and that whole sort of urge and push for peer connection and also partnership, you know, those relationships really kick on, and that becomes the drive. And I guess that, you know, that also comes from the biological imperative to make babies that's just built into us. But I think that then we then start to make decisions that have consequences. And, you know, into our adulthood. And my decisions that made consequences took me into the gay and the queer scene in Sydney in the 90s, partying and dancing and finding a village that made sense to me and who accepted me for my size. But I also made a whole bunch of decisions that took me away from that wandering child. And the consequences of those decisions were brutal. And it's very hard to find wonder when your life is brutal. And so I think, though, that it was that Gina never left. She was always there. But the decisions that I made that took me to the dark night of the soul that we get to in the book, when I fall in love with a con man, those decisions, I think, are a necessary part for me of my life's journey, where I ran into the unconscious parts of myself that I really needed to face, and can only do that through consequence, to then metabolize that learning, and in the breaking of my own innocence, find through that child consciousness the path through to my adult wisdom. And I really see in stories, in fairy stories, like, you know, everything with Clarissa Pinkola Estes, you know, the Women Who Run with the Wolves, plus all the fairy stories, there are so many archetypal tales of that process that is a natural part of the wisening heart. And I think that if we look at any life, we can probably say to either of you or anyone listening, the me that's a child, like, what did I love? What lit me up? Where was my creativity? What were the things that I just wanted to do all day? And then bloody adulting got in the way of all of that. But that child is still there. That love is still there. And if we can find a way to reach through the consequences of our life decisions to connect with that child voice, that wonder that we have in our hearts, then what we find is the path to being a whole human, getting our needs met in the world. And so for me, the reconciling, it's not a matter of reconciling. It's more tracking that process. Those wild days, those party days were a natural expression of parts of my personality and my essence. And the consequences of what felt like this wild flight were that I lost quite a few feathers and then became a much wiser human in connection with that child voice. But now that child voice isn't innocent. Now that child voice, with all of its wonder, has some wisdom.
Layers, yeah.
Gosh, there's so much in that.
There is, and I think many in perimenopause and this period of life, midlife, and our podcast is called The Change because we're very focused on this part of a woman's life. A lot of women have that experience of coming back to themselves in their childhood loves and interests, and I know that that's something I'm hoping to get to at some point soon.
I think that one of the things that I've seen, I'm 55 now. I haven't bled for 5 years. I've been in in fact, I'm about to now. I can strip off because it's hot. Furnace. It's the furnace. So I've been having that for probably 7 years. And the thing, no one ever told me it was going to be a decade of that. And not only with losing collagen, I'd lose my waist, and now I have F-cup boobs. Like, I don't even know what happened there. Like, all of that stuff. But I think that one of the things that I see is as sort of like ovary-bodied women who birth children or have families where there is a nurturing role, we are designed, again, biologically designed to take care, as mammals pretty much the world over are designed to take care of offspring. And, most mammals out there in the world, they're done in a year or two. For us, biologically, we're done in 14, but culturally, we're done in 25 or 30 years now. And so there's that whole pre-menopausal period. We are actually socially designed to be looking after the child, the children, the family unit, making that security. And so our first priority is those dependents, which hopefully is only our children, but often is our partner as well, let's face it. Emotionally and in many ways. And and I don't mean that actually in a judgy way. This is just what I see. This is just what I see in a world where our tools and strategies of connection that have got us to where we are as hunter-gatherers and are part of our DNA wisdom, they've been bent and broken. So now we have these situations where the women are taking care of everyone. And so by the time we go through the hormonal change where like the kids are done, they've, flown in whatever way they have, it's like, all right, you can actually fend for yourselves now. Off you go. We've got, am I allowed to swear?
Yes.
We've got no fucks left to give. We've given all our fucks.
We've given them all away to everyone else.
Yes, but I think that there is something that happens with that. Again, it's like that, the rite of passage of that dark night of soul and the losing of innocence into wisdom. The next part is the part when we say, I need, I want. And not only that, we have been so forged by that whole process and refined, and we have been so much in service to a purpose greater than self. That's so hardwired into us. Now we actually have something to give to the world. And to do that, we need to stop having 1 or 2 children, and now it's what are my gifts? How do I bring all this strength and wisdom and resilience into the world? And this is what I see is actually hardwired as a natural part of our psyche growing in the world. And we don't have those rituals and those rites of passage to support us. So we're all going, whoa, why does everything feel so weird? When one of the things that I see in perimenopausal, menopausal and postmenopausal women, but especially in the peri phase, women I speak to, they're like, what the fuck is this rage? And I see there's three kinds of rage. There's the red rage, which is just the passion rage. There's the white rage, where it's like, I am actually blistering. And then there's the black rage. And when the black rage comes, it's just like, I can destroy everything in my path. And I think that as women, because we're the good girl and we look after and it's everybody else, yeah, would you like, I know, let me do that. No, you don't need to. I'll do the washing up. That's fine. No, you have the last piece. I don't mind. That rage has built up without any healthy expression for a long time. And once we hit peri, it's like the brakes are off. And I think that's a very confusing time for a lot of women, because suddenly we have this conditioning telling us to behave, but now we have this fire that's coming through saying absolutely not. And so we come to things like your podcast, these places where women are going, where do I go for these conversations? And so I just want to say thanks for doing what you do.
Oh, thank you. And I guess also, like, at this time where we're kind of coming into our power and our bit of rage, we're also being told by society that we need to go away and be quiet and shut up and be invisible, and such a youth-centric culture, and it's so hard to navigate.
Yeah, it is.
I was just going to say that Laura and I, we recorded this week's episode last night, and we were talking about this. We were talking about this hard stage, like the hard yards that come with the next stage of our life. Like, there's good stuff, like, of course there's good stuff. I don't think we talk about the good stuff as much as possibly we should. Laura and I have spoken about that before as well, but it is so confusing, exactly as you say. On the one hand, you've got to be this good girl and you've got, this is your place, and then you're like, oh, hang on, this is our third act. This is my time. This is my time to do what works for me. These are the and it's all very confusing, because all of these different messages are coming at us, and we're undoing some of that conditioning, and we're filled with this rage, and it's
what's going on.
A very confusing time.
Can I read you something out of my book?
Please.
I'd love you to.
All right. Yeah. So this is a part in the book where I find out that I'm pregnant, and then 4 days later I find out that I have breast cancer. And I'm told at 40, thinking I can't have a child, find out at 40 that go to the doctor, find out I have breast cancer, and she says, you must terminate this pregnancy or you will die. She says that, actual words, and the absolute of that. And for a minute, I'm the good girl. I go, oh, okay, I must have a termination. And then this happens. Now, this is not just relevant for 40. This is for all you mids out there, all you changers out there. All right. Yes. Rage, glorious rage. Why do we fear it so much? We cower in the shadows of ourselves. We are good girls. We are the innocent heroines in the fairy stories. We behave as behooves us and flinch when the witch or the bitch or the whore rises up and takes what's hers. But sooner or later, Baba Yaga comes cackling out of the forest and burns all our stories to ash, and we find who really lives down here. And she is fine, my sweet sisters. She is a creature, a thick-muscled animal with fangs and fur and a subsonic snarl that sends the unwitting and unworthy scuttling for safety. Fat chance. Every mama who ever lived uncoils from my DNA and unites with one pure wolf voice. And in the silence, I hear their chorus, clear as stars on a moonless night. No, no, no.
Chills.
Yeah.
That's who lives here. We don't have the stories that are given to us in our culture to support that, which is why the wolf in our belly or the dingo or the snake or the whatever it is we have, it comes out and it starts sniffing. And that's where the rage is, because a wild animal, it has internal authority. It doesn't externalize its authority. It sleeps when it's tired, it eats when it's hungry, and it takes shelter when there's a storm. And we are creatures. We are in a physical body that is actually a creature. And the thing that I would probably say for my own mapping is that by listening to that voice and allowing that wild voice to be fed and nourished, it becomes a pathway through. And at first that voice is only a whisper because we've overlaid it so much with should. I should. For me, should's a 4-letter word. It's not my voice. Should is as a parent, or it's a culture, it's a billboard, or it's bloody anything. Underneath should is telling us that we're not okay the way we are. Underneath every should is a need. Okay, should do the washing up. What do I need? I need a bath. Have the fucking bath. The washing up will wait. And the creature that we are lives in the need rather than the should. So I find it a really useful thing in the deprogramming of that conditioning is to, whenever I hear the word should in my head, I shrink it down to the size of a mosquito. I give it helium. So it has this funny little voice like this, and I put it in some ridiculous outfit. Hey, you should do the washing up. And then it's ridiculous. And then once I've done that, I can say, well, what do I actually need? And the more we do that, the more we start to actually, consciously dehabituate ourselves, the more we start to listen to the instinctive voice, which is actually 80% of the look, I'm making that up. For me, it feels like 80% of the information that's available to me isn't cognitive, it isn't emotional, it's actually instinctive. Our instinctive voice is designed to get our needs met and keep us safe. That's the animal that we are. The more we listen to it, the more it pricks up its ears and its nose starts to sniff and it starts to see around corners, and it will start to lay down trails. They're not human footprints for us to follow. And when we do that, when we listen to that voice, when there's rage, it's fucking glorious.
Combining that rage with family and expectation and the weight of responsibility and adulthood and all of those things, because without a doubt, there's this part of me that would just love to run away from it all, leave it all behind. I don't know that I want to go and live in nature, but certainly run away and leave it all behind. But there's this weight of society and the weight of responsibility and the weight of the choices that I've made. And that's the unlearning and the relearning, right, that we do in this period of our lives where we are unlearning one thing and relearning another. And Laura's still in the thick of little and teen children because there's a big gap. I'm at the other side. I have 3. My son proposed to his fiancée in August, and I have twin girls who are 19. They're first year uni and TAFE and, starting to find their way in the world. So all 3 of my children need me a lot less than they've ever needed me. And that is a real unlearning as well, because there's and lots of women have spoken about it, lots of really high profile women have spoken about it, but there's this breakup that you have with someone that you love intensely and that you would lay your life down for. They don't need you anymore in the way that they did. So I need to unlearn who I am in that place of the world to be able to move into who I really am, into myself, into the next stage. There's a lot of that you talk about there's a lot of themes that you talk about how you unlearn through experiences and then relearn to be you in this next stage of your life. And that's, I guess, what we're doing in perimenopause and menopause. And that's what you're saying. We're hardwired to nurture and birth and grow those children, but we're also hardwired to let them fly in their own way.
And there's massive grief in that. When I lost my daughter, I saw this so clearly. I saw that as soon as we birth, we start that cycle of grief because every step they take is away from us. They start off inside and then they're outside. And then they're on the boob and then they're off the boob. And then they're crawling and then they're walking. And then they're going to preschool and then school. And then they've got friends. They've got teachers. So we're not the only place that they hear something. And then they do a sleepover. They do the first sleepover. They're away from us there. And then there's, high school. And then there's girlfriends and boyfriends and jobs and cars. And then they go. And then they go. And every single one of those stages, our identity as the only place that can give to them when we grew them from ourselves, every single one of those stages there's a grief, there's a let go. And it's very, very hard for us to do. And we very rarely do it cleanly because we love them, because it's our job. And so part of the gift of the children, is that they will ask us, they will beg us. And if that doesn't happen, they will break us so that we can find the parts of us that are codependent in our need for them to need us and our identity for them to need us. And part of the sacrifice of having kids, we think, oh, yes, it's in all, I've seen it all in magazines, motherhood, it's going to be great. No, it's kind of shit. I mean, it's amazing, but it's also kind of shit because it is just like, oh, here, have my liver. Oh, no, here's my heart. Oh, we want my last drop of blood here. And there's not going to be a thank you until they're in their 30s and they have their own kids and come back and go, oh, my fucking God, Mum, I am so sorry. And you're like, yeah, right. Now I'm a grandma, give me that thing. It's like, it's so much. It is like the biggest workshop that you never really knew you were signing up for. And what I see, or what I saw when I lost my daughter, was I did in 3 years what normally takes 20. But it's still the same. So the size of my grief that would normally be in all of those little increments over 20 years or something, I did in 3. Like I had to do that all at once. But actually the size of that grief is pretty much, it's the difference is that mine went away and I can never see her again. But the process of the letting go, if I stretch that out over 20 years, all of those little griefs are actually the thing that forges us. And so what you're talking about, I think, in that the confusion of like, wow, I'm actually letting go and they need me less, I have to face this change in my own identity. And really, some of that's really icky and uncomfortable. It's like, wow, I kind of don't want them to leave and I'm a bit pissed that they are going. And who the fuck even am I? And how do I even have any confidence in the world? Because now I'm learning a new identity. I'm not 15 or 20 anymore and I'm resilient and bouncy. Like I'm kind of crusted on here. And now I've got to go out and be new with no carapace, with no shell. Like, whoa, how do I do this? Again, this is where I keep coming back to stories. Like stories are the stories are our map and our container. And so going back to what are my stories about myself? What are my stories about the world? And what stories are going to nourish me in this period? And to know that it's not something, well, I had to do it all at once because I lost my child, because my daughter died. But the natural intelligence of our amazing, amazing nervous systems and the intelligence of Big Mama Nature giving us children that come and go and yes and no, like it gives us that opening and closing movement that exists everywhere in nature. It's day, it's night. Flowers open up their petals to the sun and then close them at night. Hearts open up to experience and now it's overwhelming. So we digest and we integrate. And to follow that rhythm that is the natural rhythm so that it's like, okay, I'm going to try something new. I'll give it a little go. And then come back and go, well, that was weird. That was strange. What do I do? Oh, I feel kind of insane. Oh, my God, go home, get pissed, watch Netflix, make it all go away. Oof. Okay, I can have another go now. And then just to do, it's like to be, for me, it is about being really, really forgiving with our capacity as we start to take our steps and to take in our discomfort, one step over the edge of our discomfort, not 10. One step over the edge, know that we only grow when we're uncomfortable and then come back and go, okay, now I need to integrate that. And I'm integrating it while I'm still shouting at the kids for this and being shouted at for that. And I've only got that much time just before I sleep to integrate, and fuck, I can't be bothered. And so it might not get to the integration for maybe 2 weeks. That's okay. The rhythm that we go in is kind of sketchy and hitchy and a bit weird until we get our feet under us. And then we might get that one moment of clarity. There might only be one, like, oh, wow, pottery. I actually would love to go and enroll in a pottery class 1 day a week. And then it might be nothing to do with pottery, but you might meet someone there who you strike up a friendship with and you start to go walking with them or whatever. It's those little clues, those little seeds, and then we follow, the animal in us sniffs them out, and the rest of the time I think we're just batshit crazy and confused.
Yeah. I love that. There's so much in what you just said. But yeah, sort of taking slow steps and time for ourselves in there to relearn all the things about ourselves. And you mentioned nature as well, and like being, day and night and the flowers opening and closing. And obviously nature's been a big theme in your life. For someone, say like Cathy, who doesn't love nature, I'm not a huge nature lover myself. I've certainly come to it.
It's not that I don't love nature. It's just that I find nature doesn't love me.
Yeah.
But how can being outdoors is not a thing that but I want to love it.
Yeah, how can we kind of incorporate aspects of that knowledge of nature into our lives, whether it's through, reading or just walking in nature, just for the average woman?
That's a really great question. And it's one that I think, because my journey was 67 days in the wilderness, surviving barefoot in the moss, jumping on a wallaby, eating that, it's so extreme, right? And people are like, do I have to do that? Absolutely not. We don't grow when we're comfortable. We only grow when we're uncomfortable. And for me, what that means is once we step over the edge of our comfort level, whatever that edge is, that's our edge. For me, it's 67 days in the wilderness. Cathy, for you, it might be going out in the garden for 10 minutes. Whatever it is, like that is our edge. And so I think that once we start judging what our edge is, we've already lost, because then shame kicks in. As soon as we judge ourselves, and shame is the glue that holds all our addictions together. Shame is the thing that stops us from being able to do anything. It's so icky and nasty and hard to face and feel. It'll stop us from being able to step further into our own, transition, whatever that is. So my thing is always just be really honest about what your edge is. If your edge is, man, if there's a spider in the house, I scream and throw a shoe at it and I want to kill every spider in the world, great, that's your edge. Or if your edge is 10 minutes outside and then I'm done, then it's 10 minutes outside. But then what I would say is find the way that you can be as comfortable as possible outside and then take one tiny step over that comfort. And so if the way to be uncomfortable, and I'm just going to use this as a nonsense thing, but if if the way to be uncomfortable is in a head to toe mesh suit so that no bug can get in, and that's what's required to be able to go for a walk, then great. Wear the head-to-toe mesh suit, but at least then there's those steps in going and being really honest with this is what I need so that I can be comfortable enough in my discomfort to be able to last 1 minute longer, then 2 minutes longer. Now, the other thing that I say is like the sneaky superpower parts of being able to start to connect with nature for the people who find it very uncomfortable is to be able to go out in whatever your most comfortable bit of grass is. It might be in your backyard. It might be in a park. Have a look around. Make sure there's no sticks or dog poo or anything like that. And it might just be there's one little spot there. You're like, actually, that's my little island there. And take off your shoes and just stand on that island, right? And maybe you've got your hand against a tree. Maybe it's just you just stand there for a minute. Maybe you can put something down like a mat or something and just sit, but have your bare feet touching the ground somehow, and then just spend 10 minutes. And in those 10 minutes, be receptive. Let your eyes go as soft as they can and let sounds come to you rather than going out to meet the sounds of what's this, have all your attention in your heart or in your ears and let the sounds come. Let nature come to you so that you're safe in yourself and nature can just percolate in. And then as soon as you're done, you can go, right, that's it, shoes back on and off we go. That's one thing, especially if you can get the sun on your skin, if you, in a way that's at a time that's not going to be, harmful or painful. The other one is to find a horizon. Now, humans are designed, our consciousness is designed to fall into an infinite edge. That can be stars, that can be down on the beach and looking at a horizon, but whatever it is, as soon as we actually see a horizon, we get a context of ourselves in connection with everything to that horizon. If all we have is walls, that's as big as our world ever gets to be. And our instincts are designed to connect through birdsong to the end of the horizon and through our eyes to the edge of the horizon. And so once we do that, whether it's stars or whether it's, the beach, and again, eyes soft and just fall into that horizon, something happens internally and we start to reorganize to now be part of nature. And as long as we've done that in a way that we can be comfortable, and it might be that your way to be on a horizon is rugged up head to toe, a sleeping bag around yourself, and go sit on the beach. Nothing can get me, but I'm looking at that horizon. But that's the one step. And so all those little steps then can add up to, oh, wow, I could go for a bushwalk with my mates. Oh, that actually was fun. I might take up bird watching so that I can know what these birds are and start to familiarize myself. Just something to go, what am I actually interested in rather than I'm doing something that makes me miserable.
Yeah.
100%.
My psychologist says it to me almost every time she sees me, that it's essential to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, because we want to be comfortable. Like that's just, we're hardwired for, we don't want difficult, we don't want hard, we don't want, some people do, some people seek that, they crave that, but predominantly most people want smooth, they want easy, they want no difficult decisions, because that's a hard place to live. Some of us face hard places in different ways at different times, and like you've lost a child, so you faced that discomfort and that hard, and you had a cancer journey. Those are things that you had no choice in. You wouldn't choose those discomfort and those uncomfortable settings. No one would choose those, but you had to face them. For those of us who haven't had to face those, we will almost actively run away from a discomfort situation and being uncomfortable. And that is that change that we're in now in our lives, where we're okay with no longer running away from the discomfort, but understanding how to use that discomfort for us instead of against us is really important, I think, for women.
It's massive. And I think the thing that you said about, we're at that point in our lives when we're okay with not running away from that discomfort. I would say that actually we might not be okay, but we no longer have a choice.
Yeah.
We have to learn how to be okay, because everything just got uncomfortable. All the collagen just fell out of my face. I didn't think I was that vain until all the collagen fell out of my face. And then I discovered, actually, I really am. I'm doing the thing that I said I would never do. It's like, oh my God, I'm getting these ones. Holy crap, I can see it. I'm going to be one of those wobbly old ladies. And my ass is now like, it's got its own postcode. My boobs, I can't even wrangle them anymore. My waist's disappeared. And my lovers have always been younger than me. That's been my thing. And pretty much from a couple of years ago, when I was definitely through menopause, it was like a tap turned off and none of them are looking at me anymore. Those men who I would normally be able to go, oh, you come play, they just look at me like, ew, old lady. That's confronting. That is very, very confronting, and it's uncomfortable, and I don't have a choice. actually, to be in that discomfort. I mean, sure, I could go Demi Moore, and I don't have the money, and I wouldn't want to, but I could go and spend all of the things and look like every other woman who's, you know, done that ageless, could be any age thing where I don't, you know, and that's like, well, if that's a choice, then I totally, like, your choice is your choice. That's not my choice. But that means that I have to face this reality that the collagen is continuing to fall out of my life, and
It's hard for sure.
It ain't stopping. And now I'm looking at old lady, and that's like, I don't know if I'm quite ready for that. Which is why I think then this is a lot of the confusion that comes around this time. Yeah. But what you said about the discomfort, this is something I do talk about a lot. And the thing that I see is that we live in a culture that pathologizes discomfort. So as soon as anything is remotely uncomfortable, our culture tells us there's something wrong. We have been taught and brought up as soon as there's any discomfort to go, oh, shit, there's something wrong here. We have to fix it or not feel it. And so we live in the world of 10 billion distractions. I can pick up my phone. I can call a friend. I can go get laid, hopefully. I can smoke a durry. I can smoke a joint. I can drink all the Chardonnay in the house. I can go out. I can, I can do go shopping, spend $1 million on my credit card, consume things. There's so many things that I can do to distract myself from this discomfort, and they're on tap. So yes, I agree. We don't grow when we're comfortable, and this comes down to a basic function of our hunter-gatherer ancestry. The number one law of survival is conservation of energy, and every single thing on this planet except us does it, because every calorie that I need for myself, I have to go out and find. And when I go out, I have to go out and find, or if I'm a static thing like a tree, I have to take in somehow. I risk my life. And so it's like 350,000 years of Homo sapiens DNA says, if you're comfortable, don't move. Like that's hardwired. But we don't grow when we're comfortable, and anything that's stagnant in nature dies. So it's a necessary part of us to be able to be with discomfort. And our hunter-gatherer ancestors had 1 million different tools and technologies and rituals and, social technologies and ceremonies to take people into discomfort and provide tools to be with discomfort so that we grow. There's rites of passage, there's stories, there's, being thrown in 1 million different ways into discomfort. And the reality of survival, I know from being out there, is it's uncomfortable. And every moment of comfort is like, oh, whoa, this is great. So we are, in a way, prisoners of this imperative of our DNA, which is be comfortable, but also this culture that has taken that and monetized it. Pretty much using that part of us to sell things and to keep us sedate. It's not in our culture's interest for us to be able to be in our discomfort. It's actually in our culture's interest for it to sustain itself, for us to not want discomfort. And so it takes effort. It takes effort and it takes consciousness to say, well, the more comfortable I am, the more I will sit in the center of my comfort and my world will constrict. Yep. When we're comfortable, our world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And so to be able to go out to the edge of ourselves and take that one step and that next step, now our world gets bigger and our understanding of our resilience gets better. The thing that I see with discomfort is, it's uncomfortable. But once I ask myself this question, is it going to kill me? It's a very good question. Because if it's going to cause me serious harm or the loss of my life, I need to do something about that. But if it isn't, if it's just discomfort, then can I turn down the volume and go, this will end? Turn down the volume of that discomfort so it's just one sort of like note in a symphony, and now focus on what other notes can I hear. Yes, I'm uncomfortable. I'm cold. I'm wet. I'm tired, I'm hungry, whatever. Okay, it's not going to kill me. It will end. What else is here? What else is here? Oh, there's a really beautiful bird that's singing over there. Or my kids are just laughing with each other for the first time in ages. Oh, my God, that's fabulous. Oh, there's this painting on my wall and it's really beautiful. Maybe I'll just, if I'm looking at that and I'm full of that beauty, Yeah, I'm still cold, wet, tired, uncomfortable, freaked out, whatever. But that is also true. And once we do that, we start to expand where our awareness can be instead of just this one thread of I'm uncomfortable and this is forever and it's all I can think about and I want it to end. Because if we're stuck in that, then that's suffering. But once we get into the, like, what else is true, now we are actually experiencing as we are designed to. We are experiencing with our full range of our nervous system. And then we can solve the challenges that are available. And a lot of the time that discomfort is actually, it just goes. And now we are bigger. We have more capacity. We have more vitality. We have more creativity. We can problem solve. We have more relationship with our instincts. And our relationship with discomfort has changed. And all those little tiny things add up to what for you, Cathy, is a reality for your organism, which is basically discomfort, don't want it. Laura might have one where it's like discomfort, don't particularly want it, but my nature is to be more at my edges. Me, like, where is it? There's an edge, like fling myself over it because I've taught myself. And then there's, one of my mum's friends who she can't even leave her house, like on that spectrum. And then there's another friend and she can't even leave her room. And so it's all just points on a spectrum and every single one of them is perfect. Every single one of them is how we are. But my interest is always like, how can we galvanize our organism to be able to safely come to whatever our edge is and just take that one extra step.
You speak so knowledgeably about it, and I could listen to you talk about discomfort for forever. Was that, do you think, what helped you to win alone? I feel like you were psychologically so strong. Yeah. It's so superior, essentially, not to everyone else in the show, but you just seem to deal with it. Yeah.
So there was a point where in Alone, I think it was like the 50-day mark, and there was a medical check which happens semi-regularly. And then afterwards, there was an interview where the producer came and basically checked in with the camera person and just said, okay, how are you coping with the hard days? And I just laughed. I said, this isn't hard. I said, having my daughter die in my arms, that was hard. This is just uncomfortable. And having that context, because I've had all these things happen in my life, my ability to be with discomfort is quite high. But that's like Cathy said, I've had all of these events, and I'd say partly it's because I've also chosen these events. I am not risk averse. And like part of my upbringing, as I talk about in my book, is one that isn't risk averse. And so I will throw myself over the edge, and I have the scars to prove it. I am 80% scar tissue, I'm sure, in every possible way. And it just so happens that it hasn't killed me, but it could have. So it's not like it's a way to live. I would even say, yeah, go off and do that. It's just the way that I have. Then there's the let's be safe. And that is sensible in so many ways as well. Like that's how I keep my family safe, keep my life safe, and to have that container of safety to be so solid. There's a wisdom in that. And it just so happens that I can speak about the wisdom of discomfort. I suspect, Cathy, you can probably really beautifully speak about the wisdom of safety, that there's choices that you've made. Well, that's my feeling. And, if I'm wrong, then, I don't want to.
No, probably very much so. Yeah. I mean, I did do risky things when I was younger, but then I think things just got so risky, I got safe.
Yeah. And there's a wisdom in that. Like that's why these conversations are great, because every voice is necessary. Like I get to talk about all the discomfort stuff. It can be really easy to project and go, oh, that's the right way. I don't think so. I think that every voice and every experience, this is part of the change, is we need to hear from the safe. We need to hear from the uncomfortable. We need to hear from the transition. Like that's all part of how we then go, right, I'm going to cherry pick. There's things that Gina says that I'm like, wow, that's something that I can do. And there's things that Gina says, it's like, I just couldn't do that. And there's things that, Cathy, you'll be like, there's something that's so profound and important about for us to be able to have containment and a nest. and for the child that we are inside us to feel safe enough to be able to get into more discomfort, there has to be a level of safety inside. And I suspect, Cathy, you would probably be able to, to share things about your life that have helped to promote and create that for you and your family. And we need all of it.
It is, it's tricky, isn't it? And I don't think we value storytelling as much as we should. When I say we, I think European society, we have lost that connection to storytelling. I think other societies really value that connection to storytelling, and storytelling is so essential for us to share wisdom and knowledge through generations, and it keeps us connected to each other, and it helps us through good times and bad times, and it passes that wisdom through generations. So I've always been passionate about storytelling for connection and storytelling for healing and storytelling for meaning, and I think that that's what women do well, but our voices have been quiet for some time, and I think there's a real resurgence in women's voices, and that's where we're kind of coming to. But I know Laura has a burning question to ask you.
Oh, I do. One of the parts of your book, and I think of watching you on Alone, was obviously how you dealt with grief and talking about the death of your daughter Blaze. And that's just, it was heart-wrenching, devastating, but also the way you spoke and dealt with that huge grief was inspiring, I think, for many people that have lost someone close to them. And I just wondered, how does that grief now sit with you so many years on? And what would you sort of say to someone that has just lost someone dear to them, and how they can use your wisdom to move through that grief?
If you didn't watch Alone, there's a point 3 days, on the third day that I was out there completely on my own in the wilderness, surviving, no camera crews, no producers, nobody, just me. And on the third day, it was the anniversary it was my daughter's birthday. That's right. And I think she would have been 11, maybe 12. She was 12. And I left the cameras rolling and I showed my grief. And the beautiful thing is that SBS and ITV allowed not just the depths of me grieving and keening, but also on the other side, the next morning when I'm sitting out and I just feel peace and gratitude. And the beautiful thing about that is they showed the whole grief storm. It's like they showed the bit that's hard to watch, but they also showed the intelligence of a nervous system that when we do feel what we feel, emotions are weather and they blow through. And the thing that I know about grief is that grief gives itself to us in bite-sized portions. Like there's the chuntering along low level or mid-level or even high level sort of like baseline of it. But it comes in waves, and each wave is a piece that we can digest. And on the other side, we've actually digested one little part of it. And because I've said yes to the grief ever since losing my daughter, as you'll read in this book, and I'm not going to give that bit away, but it's pretty bloody beautiful. It's meant that I have allowed that weather to roll through over and over, and in the process I've taught myself that there's always the other side. And by going all the way in and allowing the grief to have its way and asking, what is grief asking of me in any moment? Sometimes it's to be in the car screaming with trying to pull the steering wheel off and looking over, and there's some guy in the car next to me going, whoa, this woman's got some stuff going on. Or sometimes it's sitting in the gutter with my shopping rolling down the road, wailing, and sometimes it's making love, and sometimes it's just staring at the sky, and sometimes it's going to see a movie, and sometimes it's having my now ex-husband tell me the most inappropriate jokes that are so bad and laughing so hard that I almost pee myself. And grief will ask what it asks. Sometimes it asks us to be numb. Sometimes it asks us to be angry. And whatever it is right. I think the thing that happens when we have a big loss is that we can judge our own grief compared with how it should be. Oh, which of the 5 stages of grief am I in? Oh, well, I should be through it by now. Where it's not like that. Whatever the stage is that we're in is the stage that we're in. And it will last as long as it lasts. And it can't be fixed and it can't be figured out. It's just that's what grief is doing in our bodies. I find that grief is incredibly narcissistic. Our grief is the only grief, and anyone else's that isn't the way ours is almost suspect. So I see family members getting into huge fights because someone is just carrying on like nothing's happened, and someone else is numb, and someone else is just going out partying, and then someone else is in bits looking after all of the things. But it will do what it does to the cracks and the fault lines that we all have in ourselves, and in the process, it dissolves that which no longer serves. That's what it does. It is a transformational force. And here's the thing that I would say to anyone and everyone, because grief is going to affect all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Our size of the grief, the size of our grief is the size of our love for that which we've lost. That's how big our heart is. That's how big the pain is. And we all love and lose. It might be a pet. It might be a house that we loved or we grew up in. It might be a bit of bush that bulldozers came to. It might be just watching a flower die in a vase. It might be collagen or a waste. It might be a life cycle. But whatever it is, we care about things and then they change because that's what life does. That's what your podcast's called, The Change. Well, guess what? The change isn't just when our hormones, a change is every single moment of every single day. And if we can say yes to the discomfort of that, oh, darling, if we can say yes to the discomfort of that and constantly say, this is the size of my love. This is the size of my heart. My heart is so big, now it hurts this much. What is grief asking of me? It's asking of me to go and dance, or it's asking me to go and read, or it's asking me to bloody go shout at a tree. But whatever that is, when we allow grief to have its way with us and we say yes to that, now we're bigger than the grief. And tears may come, the rain may come, that's the weather. The rage may come, that's the weather. But if we allow it and go, yeah, I am designed to feel this, every single time we do, we get bigger and bigger and bigger. And our ability to dance with grief gets stronger and stronger. And that capacity to be with that discomfort creates the human and the wisdom that we see to be able to be with every single possible element of life. It's messy as fuck. It's uncomfortable as fuck, but it's also part of our DNA and our nervous system. Our bodies know what to do.
Thank you. Cathy and I are both in tears. Just, thank you for your wisdom on that. I think I don't know how else to sum it up other than that it's so helpful.
Well, it's not even recent grief. I guess it's the grief of growing children, right?
Right.
And it's exciting that they move into the next steps and you want to celebrate that. But like we said before, it's a sadness for me. I don't think we accept that.
Well, I think that's part of the journey of, the acceptance of that is part of the whole bloody laundry list of shit we have to accept in one way or another in life. I'd love to read from my book as a little
please.
Last little bit.
Yeah.
What if love is when we say, I will let you shape my life and I will shape yours? What if every choice we make to allow someone to sculpt us through our dance of connection, whether a dearest friend or most hated enemy, is an act of love? What a privilege to be a force in anyone's life, no matter how small. Of all of the people we could let in, we choose 50 or so to impact and mold us. In an ocean of 8 billion souls, wherever we shine the light of our attention, we bring one out of the darkness and into the force of our regard. In changing, we are changed. Every person in our lives has their bloody fist buried to the hilt in our heart and ours in theirs. Monkey grip.
Oh, Gina, thank you so much.
that thing about grief giving itself to us in little chunks, I realized that after I lost Blaze. And what I wanted to do was to write a book where I could talk about these things, but also in a way that honors the natural rhythm of our nervous systems. So we go through, like, the funny parts are funny. The stories are everything. Like, there's this whole roller coaster. So by the time we get to the big stuff, the tools are there to be able to be with them. So if I've done my job right, and I think I have, by the end of the book, you too will believe and know and remember that we are all made of stars.
Well,
Laura.
It's not often our guests reduce us to tears, Cathy. We were both a bit of a dribbling mess there. I think the power of her words and the way she speaks is just, it's really cuts to the core, doesn't it?
It sure does. And yeah, I know that we have had guests on in the past who've prescribed nature, and we talk often about sitting in uncomfortable situations, but there was just something about Gina and her words, and I really am speechless. I don't think there's a lot.
No, she's so eloquent and passionate. I think that really comes across. And when you read her book, and which you will, you have to get her book. It's there's so much detail, and her life is so extraordinary. I've never really read anything quite like it. And speaking to her, I was really nervous about it, because I think she's such an interesting person, and she's had so much interest from the Australian people and media that it felt like, what could we possibly ask her, that she hasn't already been asked or spoken about. But I think it doesn't matter. She's just passionate about all the themes we spoke about, and I love listening to her. I thought she was just a A-grade guest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel very lucky and honoured to have had her on. And I really hope that everybody loves listening to Gina as much as we really appreciated interviewing her and being given that gift of the hour of her time. And I think if there's one thing I can take away from her, it's the power of no.
Oh, that was, absolutely.
That doesn't serve me. So no. And no is, and I will often say
a full sentence.
Yeah, I will say that to many, many people. No is a complete sentence. And you don't have to make any excuses, and you can be polite about it. You don't have to be rude when you say no, but no, it's not going to work for me. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved her thoughts on that and boundaries. Yeah, and also I'm going to go now and stand on a patch of grass in my backyard and just think about everything she said and kind of process it a little bit.
Yeah,
that's my next step for today.
Actually put my feet on some grass.
Amazing. Oh, that was such a good episode. Thank you for listening. And again, buy Gina's book and watch some summaries of Alone if you haven't done. That season was my favourite so far, and I've watched a lot of Alones. I'm a big fan, and not that I want to go and do that, but I think that Gina's an incredible, resilient heroine. She's brilliant.
Thanks for listening to The Change, a fully independent podcast. Whether you're seeking inspiration, curious about change, or just here for the great banter, we'd love you to make The Change your new go-to podcast.
And even better, send us your voice notes or questions about change. We'll use them on the show. Email us at changepod2023@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at _change_pod. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram for more on The Change.